Hi guys, welcome to the final video of our probability and data statistics series. Now, in the previous video, we talked a lot about the interquartile range. What's kind of going on in the middle parts of our data? Now, in this question I've included here, we are going to practice the same techniques we learnt from that video. And you can pause the video if you'd like and try it yourself, or you can just fast forward to later on in the video, because through what we are going to determine here, we are going to keep building on our understanding of our quartiles and our interquartile range, and we are going to try to represent this information visually, because once we look at this visually, it will give us actually a pretty good idea of how our data is spread across. And as you come across some different types of questions in your textbooks and you draw these types of box plots, you can start to think about why these look different, or what is actually happening with my range and my interquartile range. How is the data spread out? And a lot of this stuff is going to be outside of the scope of this course. We will touch on it a lot more next year as well. In next year's data and statistics section. But let's just jump straight into a question, get all the relevant information here, and we will look at how to draw a box plot out of this. Now, we are given a data set here for the 11 scores resulting from rolling 2 dice and adding the scores. Now, from this, we are going to identify these 5 key values. We want to find the minimum, maximum, median, lower quartile, upper quartile, and then draw a box plot. Now, jumping straight in, we can quite easily find our minimum value and our max value. We just get this from looking at the bottom end and the top end. And now we want to find the median. So if we count the number of scores here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, that means I have an odd number of scores. So if I locate the middle number here, and that should be this guy over here. Let's just double check. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on each side. Perfect. So we have an odd number of scores here. So our median is only going to be one of these values. We can pinpoint an exact middle here. So this thing here is going to be my median, or Q2. Now, since we have split this up into a lower half, a lower quartile, a lower just half of our data, and an upper half of our data, we can try to locate the middle of this. The 2 middle values of each, which are going to make up our Q1, our lower quartile, and our Q3, our upper quartile. So we can look at how many terms we have in the lower half. So let me just draw up a box around the lower half and a box around the upper half. And I can see that I have 5 terms in both halves. So once again, I can find a number that is smack bang in the middle. This 6 here has 2 numbers on either side, so that's going to be the middle of my lower half. So my Q1 equals 6. And this 9 here is smack bang in the middle here, so our Q3, our upper quartile, equals 9. So we've got 5 terms here, and this is what in statistics we call a 5 number summary of our data. And our box plot is going to represent all of this information and tell us roughly how the data looks on paper, how we can visualize this, how much of a spread there is both in the middle, our interquartile range, as well as our outer range. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a number line down here. And I'm going to put all of the relevant information here. So I'm going to separate this with these values here. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Okay. I've drawn a nice big number line here. And I want to just place all the relevant information on there. And it's going to look a certain way once we do. So first of all, I have my minimum point, my 4. So I'm just going to draw this line up here like this. This is going to be my minimum value. And my upper value was 12. So that's going to be up here. Oops. And I want to just draw lines through all of the other sections too. So I have my median, my middle, which is 7. So let me draw that here. I have a value of 6, which is here. And I have a value of 9 as my upper quartile, which is here. And I'm going to just draw a box around these guys here. And I'm going to extend some lines out to the end here. So what I've just drawn here is what's known as a box plot. It contains in it a minimum value, a max value, let's do these in a different color, a lower quartile, an upper quartile, and right in the middle we have our median, or my middle value. So if we look at what this looks like, we can make a couple of observations about my data. Now, it's important to know, we talked about this in the last video, but between these two bits, so from my minimum to my quartile 1, my lower quartile, that makes up 25%. My quartile 1 to quartile 2 makes up 25%. My quartile 2 to my third quartile makes up 25%. And this bit here from my upper quartile to my max makes up 25% of my data. So you're probably noticing here that there are, it almost looks like we're being fooled, because we're saying, okay, well, each of these makes up 25%, but the distance, for example, from here to here looks a lot smaller and a lot more different to this distance here, but they have the same amount of people. So this is telling us about how the data is distributed all the way through my box plot, because I can see that there are some slight differences. Even though they make up 25%, I can see that, well, okay, the difference between the median and the upper quartile is a lot bigger than the difference between my lower quartile and my median. So this is telling us that the data is spread across and is getting pulled in all different directions. So I'm going to leave it here because we go into this and this idea of skewing data a lot more in the year 10 content. So all we need to know from this video is how to actually draw up a dot plot. It involves you needing to know all of your key values. So your minimum value, your maximum value, how to find your median, and how to find your upper and lower quartiles. And actually drawing this. So all of these are going to look like these two end bits here, a box in the middle made up out of connecting my quartile 1 to my quartile 3, with a line straight down the center representing my second quartile or my median. And we draw this along a number line to see how we visualize this, to see how our data is spread across on this number line of values from our question. So all of these things make up our 25%, and some of you may have picked up on the fact that this actual box here represents our entire interquartile range. Because our interquartile range is just the difference between my third quartile and my first one, my upper quartile and my lower quartile. So right in the center, the difference between those makes up this space here. My box contains my interquartile range, and the section that makes up 50% of my total data, with the other 25% belonging to the distance between my minimum and my lower quartile and my maximum to my upper quartile. But this is how we can draw box plots, and you can see by this diagram, hopefully, that our data looks like it's spread out a little bit. There are a lot of things happening, and even though each of these is just making up 25%, it's not super indicative, or it's not very evenly split, or as evenly split as we imagined it would be once we actually drew this. So this is just something for you to think about, because it's going to be a precursor for the content we do in year 10 in our data and statistics course. But I will see you there. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and that brings us to the end of this course.